Welcome to this training session. If we haven't met before, my name is Julieanne. I have been setting up and optimizing Dubsado and 17hats CRMs for 5 years now through my Done For You service and also my one-to-one sessions. I have served and supported almost 100 clients across different industries, including photographers, web designers, and so many more. Outside of business, I have a dog called Patch who I love. I have 3 children, 2 girls and a boy, and I am movie and TV show obsessed. If you have any good recommendations, please send them my way. In this training, we're going to talk a lot about some of the resources from the CRM workbook. So if you have the CRM workbook, then please open it up for this training. If you would like to get it, you can go to www.juliannewalker.com/the CRM workbook. So to get the most out of this masterclass, I want you to take action. So during the masterclass, I'm going to be talking about a few different things, and I want you to make time on your calendar outside of this masterclass to take action on the things that I share with you. I would also like when we start to think about the customer journey and workflows, I want you to think of it from 2 points of view. So your point of view and the client's. From your point of view, what information do you need to give or get from clients? How can you make your service run as smoothly as possible? How can you set boundaries and keep timelines on track? From your client's point of view, how can you build and nurture strong relationships? How can you make sure that clients are happy? How can you deliver a great service to them? How can you make use of your system in a way that actually impresses your clients? But before we get started on workflows or the client journey, I want to first talk about why people struggle and why it's actually a really good thing. So both CRMs, Dubsado and 17hats, are really versatile and they have lots of different features. They can do lots of different things, and that versatility can bring lots of different possibilities, which means that workflows can start in multiple ways. For example, with Dubsado, someone could come in through a lead capture form. They could book a call with you via a scheduler embedded on your website. If you have a public proposal, they could come in that way. There's lots of different ways that they can just enter your CRM, and there's lots of different ways that the workflows can go, which is wonderful. We have all of these different tools and resources that we can pull on. But with that, it can sometimes create a bit of overwhelm, and the people that I speak to always tell me that they just don't know where to start, and they're kind of paralyzed by that overwhelm. There also is no one size fits all. So I've worked with a number of different businesses. I never start my Done For You set up an optimization service with a template, because every single business is different. Every process is different. Every client I've worked with does things slightly differently. And so there is no one size fits all. And there's so much possibilities. There's so many different things that we can do that it creates overwhelm, but it's actually a really good thing, because look at all these different things that we have at our fingertips and how we can mold client journeys and help us run our businesses through this wonderful CRM experience. So I know it can be overwhelming, but I want you to always remember at the back of your mind that it's a really good thing that we have all these different features and tools to pull from. The biggest mistake that people often make is that they do not spend time learning the features or capabilities of their CRM. People want to jump right in, they want to get started because they're excited, and they obviously want to start using their CRM to take some of the pressure off and to, ease workload. But if you don't spend some time to learn all of the different features and capabilities, you don't know what's possible. And you cannot build workflows without first knowing what is possible. So what I would like you to do is set a timer and explore all of the different options. Play around, Create a test workflow, click on things, see what happens when you click on an action, see what triggers come up, see what different features are there. Click on things. Don't be afraid to play around and explore, because that's where you do the best learning. And once you do this, you can see, oh, I can do this. I didn't know I could do this. This would be really helpful whenever this happens, or this would solve this problem for me. So when you do this, you see what's possible and you start to see where the different features and different capabilities could actually help you in your business. So once you've done that, I also want you to use this knowledge whenever we go into the workflow creation process. Now you know what's possible, you'll also be able to consider this when creating workflows. Let me also share with you one thing that leads to frustration, overwhelm, and staying stuck in your CRM, and how to avoid it. Failing to plan out your client's journey with you before you build out your workflows in your system. When you don't plan out your workflows, you haven't really thought about your customer journey and how you work with your clients enough. You haven't thought through each step and what needs to happen. And the key to a successful setup and optimization is carefully thinking through and planning your client's journey and translating that into your chosen CRM while making use of the features it has to offer. Most client journeys have 5 phases. The first is the lead process, the booking process, how you're actually going to deliver your service, how you're going to complete a project, and how you're going to upsell and follow up and keep that relationship going. The beauty of your CRM, again, is that you can tailor it to you and how you do business. So for some folks, that is having one workflow, and other people prefer to have multiple workflows for these different elements of the client journey. You get to decide, and each of your services will have their own customized workflow. So I want to give you some prompts here on the client journey and how to think this through. So again, make sure you make time on your calendar to think through these questions. If you have the CRM workbook, you can do it right on the workbook, but I want you to make some time to think these things through. So when it comes to the lead phase, what is the immediate contact information that you need to get from a potential client? Also remember that in both 17hats and Dubsado, you must have first name, last name, and email address. Those are system required fields and need to be asked, whether you are putting somebody in manually or they're coming through a lead capture form. You must have first name, last name, and email address. So what is the information that you need to get in that first inquiry? What do you want to happen once a lead capture form has been completed or a new lead has come in? Now remember that this is often the first point of contact, so how can you make a really good first impression? When it comes to booking clients, what information do you need to gain from a potential client in order to quote them for your service? What does your process look like for booking your services, and how will you guide your potential client through this process? How are you going to make this process easy and also create a wonderful client experience? When it comes to service delivery, what information do you need to provide to a client to set their expectations at the beginning? How do you communicate? And what communications do you need to have with your client while carrying out their service? What tasks do you need to complete in order to deliver your service to your client? When your project is complete, how do you officially draw a line under the service with your client? What questions would you like to ask them about the service that they received? How will you request feedback, and how will you use it? Once your service has been completed, are there opportunities for you to continue to work with the client? How could you offer those additional services? And how can you keep that relationship going? So when you think about your client journey, use the planning time to think through the experience of the customer and what things need to happen for you in order to keep things moving forward. I'd also like to give you an overview of workflow planning. So every time you start to plan workflows, you need to first think about the trigger. This is the thing that kicks off the workflow. And again, the wonderful thing about the CRM is that this can happen in multiple ways. So for example, in Dubsado, people can come through a lead capture form, they can come through a public proposal, they can come through a lead capture form, you can manually put people in. So what is the trigger? Workflows can be started manually as well, remember that. So what is the trigger that starts off the workflow? What happens next? So identify the action that needs to happen. When does that step happen? Also, not just when does it happen, but does it happen automatically or is approval required? What communications are required? So identify all those different touch points that you're going to have. And keep repeating those steps until you get to the final step, which is what is the thing that completes the workflow. So it could be the workflow is automatically archived after a certain amount of time. It could be that a new workflow is automatically started. It could be that you manually end the workflow. So think about that final step as well. When you're doing this, if you feel overwhelmed at all, I want you to use the step back technique. So this is my go-to 3-step technique for removing overwhelm when building workflows. The first step is to recognize, acknowledge that you're feeling overwhelmed and take a step back. So I always advise that you take a short break, get up from your desk, go get a cup of tea and come back whenever you're ready. Step 2 is to ask questions. So I want you to ask yourself whether you skipped steps in the workflow, you jumped too far ahead, or you're just moving too quickly. Like, what is it that made you feel overwhelmed? And then I want you to write, draw, or talk out your workflow steps in little bite-sized pieces, create a timeline, and add your workflow steps. Give each step an action within the workflow, list out of all of the communications needed to do that. And I'm going to give you 2 resources that help you do that. These 2 resources are the simplest and most straightforward way of planning workflows. So again, if you have the CRM workbook, you can open that or you can print them off and have them side by side. But these 2 pieces are key. So the first one is the workflow creation document. At the top, you will write the name of the workflow, and then you'll see that the first action item is actually a trigger. So this is the thing that starts the workflow. So you'll put in what the action is. So it could be sending an email. When does that happen? Is approval required? And you just keep going through these. What is the action? When does it happen? Is approval required? Until your workflow is complete. Now, if you're using 17hats in particular, I would also recommend that you group together any items that are in a specific phase so that you can just break up your workflow so that they don't look so visually overwhelming. But you're just going to keep repeating that process. So what is the action that happens? Go back to that planning phase that we did and look at the steps that you outlined. What happens? Is it a to-do item? Is it sending something? Is it starting something? What happens? When does it happen? Is approval required? So once you map out every step in the workflow and use this resource when building it out in your CRM, the next thing that you'll need is this workflow communications list. So you'll write the name of the workflow, and then in this box, you'll write all of the different communications that you're going to need. This is truly the longest, most time-consuming and hardest part of building workflows, because whenever you're building a workflow, you need so many different communications with clients. For example, anytime that you send a quote, you need an email template to accompany that quote. So you need to create the quote and you need an email template. Every time that you want to send a questionnaire, again, you need an email template to accompany the questionnaire and you need the questionnaire. So what kind of things do you want to put on the questionnaire? What kind of things do you need to write in the email? How can you make the email feel warm and not cold and automated? So this really is the hardest part, but once you create all of these communications first, then you have everything you need to build workflows really quickly. I wanted to show you a couple of examples of workflows, not to show you the workflow itself, but for you to be able to identify that every single workflow is simply action, communication, when it happens, is approval required. So for example, here, the action is send email. The potential client workflow first contact email is the communication. When does it happen? Immediately after the workflow is started, and there's no approval required. The next one is the action that happens is send appointment scheduler. The communication piece is the design assessment session scheduler. When does it happen? Immediately after the previous item. Is approval required? Yes, it is. I want you to be able to identify these. So again, in 17 hats, what is the action? Send questionnaire. When does it happen? Immediately after the workflow has been started. What's the communication piece? It's the family session questionnaire. Does it happen automatically? Yes, it does. So once you see that these are the keys of building workflows, it really takes away the fear of being able to do it, because you have already reviewed the features available and learned how they worked. You've planned out your customer journey. You've identified the workflow trigger. You've listed all of the steps and assigned an action. You've determined when that action happens and if approval is required. You've broken the workflow down into stages. You've listed all of the communications and hopefully built them out first. You've planned the communications and what's needed in them. Once you've done this, you're ready to build, and you simply take your workflow creation document and build it out in your CRM. To thank you for watching this training session, I've put together an offer to help you fast track your CRM setup and optimization. You can only get this offer at the address below. Go to www.juliannewalker.com/on-demand. And if you haven't already, please join us in our free Facebook community, the Client Management Society. Thanks for watching.